I'm pretty sure you don't know how John Carlos's involvement in the protests during the 1968 Olympics impacted his marriage. But if you don't know, or even if you do, I'll tell you, because this is I'll Tell You What. The year 1968 was very loaded for Black Americans, especially anyone remotely involved or in tune with the civil rights movement. In April, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. A week later, the Fair Housing Act was enacted, which, let's check back on the status of that one later. In June, the good Robert F. Kennedy Sr. was unalived, and as athletes, John and Tommy Smith, along with others, realized that there were other injustices they were upset about, and they wanted to boycott. 1. South Africa and Rhodesia were invited to participate in the Olympics despite being apartheid nations. 2. Extreme right-winger Avery Brundage was the president of the International Olympic Committee. He was against the Black athletes' request for more Black coaches because he found that to be, quote, irrelevant. He was known to have led an autocracy, which even the official Olympics website describes his reign as president as, quote, the most controversial of any IOC president. And finally, they wanted Muhammad Ali to get his heavyweight boxing title back. So keep that in mind when we go to October during the 1968 Summer Olympics in Mexico City, where John and Tommy made history with the protests that you've probably seen plenty of times. So after finishing third and first, respectively, in the 200-meter race, John and Tommy walked to the podium for their medal ceremony. As the U.S. national anthem played, they bowed their heads and raised their gloved fists in a Black Power salute. John wrote, quote, as the anthem began and the crowd saw us raise our fists, the stadium became eerily quiet. Then, as the national anthem played in full force, the calm before the storm ended and the boos start coming down. He said that they were screaming, not even singing the anthem, just like screaming it. As they headed back to the Olympic Village to reunite with their families, the reality of their actions definitely set in. The media didn't make things easier. As John's wife, Kim, tried to return to the village, he wrote, quote, one of these reporters recognized her as my wife. 100 reporters ran up to her, and suddenly she was in the middle of something neither of us were prepared for. He went on to mention how they were pulling on her, screaming at her, and just overall causing a very scary scene. John found out and went to rescue her. And after that, just about every publication had something negative to say about them. John noted how all of the news sources had been pulled from the village because he assumed that the whole world was essentially talking about their protests, and the IOC just didn't want them to see it. The Los Angeles Times reported that they engaged in a, quote, Nazi-like salute. Oh, this is a Nazi salute? But what that one man did wasn't? You know what? The backlash was swift and severe, as you'd imagine. The U.S. Olympic Committee expelled both athletes from the games and sent them home. John said, quote, as for Kim and me, we just tried to shut all those things out of our minds. We tried to just focus on the greatest asset that we had, each other. I leaned on Kim, and maybe I leaned too much. The opportunities for work were slim. John wrote that HBCUs would request that he and Tommy would go speak, but they didn't really have large budgets, so it's not like they really made a lot of money off of those opportunities. And he wrote that the FBI would begin to send photos of himself with different women that he met while on these different campus visits back to his wife. Quote, it got to my wife to the point where she was so paranoid every time I went out the door, it was like I was after some woman. This started the very unraveling of my family. Since John struggled to find consistent work and they were handling the notoriety of who he was and what he did, the stress of all this caused tension in their marriage. Years later, John wrote, quote, we were living on one steady income and it was from my wife, Kim. This began to impact both of their mental health, but definitely Kim's. In 1977, the weight of it all was just too much to bear. The protests of the Olympics made John a pariah, which made it hard for him to get or keep a job. And there were all these rumors of his alleged infidelity that he kept having to manage. And even though they had separated, it was just a lot. It was a lot. So in 1977, Kim unalived herself. John said, quote, "I've never been the same since." So what was a great display of solidarity for many causes and the hope to improve the conditions for Black athletes in the Olympics ultimately led John Carlos and his wife down a fatal path. So sad. But did y'all know that? Because I had no idea.